First, it's really great to talk about John. I'm in his office. John operated in these offices in the Russell Building for many, many years until his last couple of years in the Senate. He just moved briefly, or just 50 yards around the corner, into John Kerry's office. And I was able to get the John McCain office, and I have pictures of him up in the corner to remind myself of the great vibe that is in this room where I sit. A funny story, and then a very poignant and serious one. A funny story. So I'm on armed services with John. When my oldest son graduated from infantry officers school at Quantico as a Marine officer, and come through that very much of a crucible experience, I went to his graduation at Quantico, and there were parents and dignitaries there, and the MC of the festivities introduced VIPs and said, and folks were really lucky to have Senator John McCain here. And there was a standing ovation, and I looked around and I thought, wow, my chair heard that my son was graduating from IOC and decided he would come. He didn't tell me what a wonderful thing. Well, I looked around and John wasn't there. And then when I sat down, I realized that they had made a mistake. And because my name is Kaine, and I'm the dad of one of the guys, they introduced me and they said I was John McCain. So the next day we had an Armed Services Committee meeting, and I went up to John and I told him the story. I said, I'm there for my son. They introduced John McCain. He's not there. I couldn't even get, honored as a U.S. Senator, father of a graduate, because they were expecting John McCain. And without missing a beat, John just looked at me in the eye and said, Tim, I never knew a Marine who could spell. The poignant one, and others may tell this story, but it is the most dramatic moment of my life in public office. And I've had some dramatic moments. I've had some very dramatic moments. We were on the floor in August of 2017 with a vote schedule that would have taken healthcare away from about 20 million people, including people I love, people in my family, a lot of constituents. John McCain had been diagnosed with glioblastoma and had been in the hospital and had come back shortly before that vote was taking place. And how he was going to vote on that bill was very much a mystery. Earlier in the week, there had been a procedural vote that people were reading the tea leaves. What did this vote mean? And John voted in a way that made many people in my caucus feel like he was a goner. He was going to vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act. I remember my whole entire caucus was so depressed. And the day of the actual vote, when we needed 3 Republicans to be with us, and thank goodness Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski had announced that they would be with us, but that wasn't 3. I remember having a meeting of all Democrats shortly before we went to the floor, and my colleagues were very, very depressed about what would happen. And I remember standing up and saying, let me tell you something. I know the way John voted on this matter the other day, and I know that that has led many of you to conclude that John McCain is going to vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act. But I'm going to tell you this. I haven't known John as long as many of you have, but I just cannot imagine that a John McCain who was just in the hospital, surrounded by people who were undergoing treatment and maybe at the very edge of life and death and witnessing that. I can't imagine John McCain having that experience and then coming to the Senate and voting to take health insurance away from a single person, much less 20 million people. I cannot square that notion in my mind. And I think it's going to work out fine, even though I have no evidence for that proposition. We were on the floor late that night, and at one point, John walked down to a group of us. This was maybe about 10 minutes before the vote was going to start. And we were standing at the front of the chambers. And there were maybe 2 of us standing there, and he just walked up to us and said, don't tell anybody, but I'm with you guys. And I went back over to my side and I said, don't tell anybody. Already violating my promise. Don't tell everybody, but I think John McCain is going to save the day. That then began about the longest 15 minutes of my life, because they had to call the vote up, and then they were going through the alphabet, and John was getting called out because the president wanted to talk to him, and John was getting lobbied by the vice president, and then they went by his name in the alphabet and he was out of the room, and now we were at the end of the alphabet, and the gallery was packed with citizens and with press who were on the edge of their seat about what would happen. And all of these people all over the country who depend on healthcare were on the edge of their seats wondering what would happen. And when John walked back in the room and with this Spartacus-like moment voted down the bill with the thumbs down, voting against the bill to repeal the Affordable Care Act, remembered thinking, it does not get any more exciting than this. It does not get any more momentous than this. And my intuition about John, with all evidence to the contrary, I knew he would do the right thing.